So hello everyone, I'm gonna discuss the basis and dimension. So ano nga ba ang basis? Ano nga ba ang dimension? So basis is a set of linearly independent vectors. And dimension is defined as the number of linearly independent vectors and number of non-zero row in row echelon form. Also the columns in column echelon form. That's the dimension. For us to learn more about the basis and dimension, we have to make an example. This is the example. Find the basis and the dimension of the vectors. These are the vectors. Okay? So, there are 3 steps for us to get the basis and dimension of that example or problem. First is to set the vectors to a matrix in a row order or column order. Second is to make it to row echelon or column echelon form. Lastly is to find the basis and dimension. That are the 3 steps for us to solve. Okay? So, paano nga ba masosolve ito? Paano ma-find yung basis and the dimension? Okay? So, we have to set the vectors to a matrix in a row order or column order. Ganito po. Tapos, ang next po yan is magiging ganito. Okay, so paano nga ba ito nakuha? Okay, the steps are this. So, ito po ang formula. So, row 2. Ito yung parang row 2 niya. By the way, kukopyahin po lang po ito tapos ilagay dun sa next column. And then, ito po, row 2 is ikopyahin lang po. Kapag dito po ang kukunin, kukopyahin lang po ito. Para sa formula. Dito lang po. I'm sorry. Tapos, minus 4, row 1. Row 1. This one. Bale, kapag kukunin mo po ang nasa line na to, ang magagamit mo po is itong kanto. So, ayan. 4, i-minus po siya sa 4 times 1. Bale, i-multiply po itong dalawa muna para dito ma-minus dito sa row 2 for us to get the 0. So, pares lang naman po ng given, kaya magiging 0 din. Okay. Next is, how about this one? This third one, since iba naman ang given. Okay? So, magiging ganito po. R2 minus 3 times 1. 3 times 1. As I've said earlier, ito pong mga ganito ang ginagamit para makuha ito. So, R2, row 2 pa rin. Yung 4 pa din po ang nandito. Parang main niya na po yan. Siya po yung magiging parang main number na isusubtract sa magiging product ng dalawang ito. So, 3 times negative 3 times negative 1 is equal to positive 3. So, 4 minus 3 is equal to 1. So, ayan na po ang 1. Same goes with the next. Ito po, kopyahin po si 4. I-minus po siya sa product ng 1 at saka 0. So, 1 times 0 is equal to 0. So, 1 minus 0 is equal to 1. Okay po, gets? I hope so. So, how about the third layer naman? Ito, dito. How did we get this? So, kagaya po dito sa second, itong third naman is siya yung magiging nandito. Like this. Okay, ganito po. Row 3 minus 6 times R1. Ganun din po, kung dito po sa pangalawang layer, I'm sorry. Dito po sa pangalawang layer, kapag dito po, itong dalawa po ang nagalaw. I-multiply. So, kapag sa row 3 naman is, ito naman at saka ayan. Sa first line, ito po at saka ito. Second line, ito at saka ito. Ito. Yun na. Then, third is ito. Okay? So, magiging product po niyan is, ang lalabas po na sagot is 0. Which is this. Kagaya ng solution dito sa ginawa dito para makuha ito. Same lang din po para makuha itong row 4, itong mga to. Sana na-gets nyo. Okay. So, using the column echelon form, these two rows can be switched. Okay, pag-switch po. Kaya magiging ganito. So, ito po, magiging ganyan po siya. Magiging ganito po siya. Okay po, magiging ganito po. So, that's the use of column echelon form. Then, next is the row echelon form. So, kapag po gagamit ang row echelon form is magiging ganito po. So, with the use of this solution, row 4 will be is equal to the r minus 3r3. So, 0 minus the ganito po ang formula. So, you will get the value of if paano makuha itong magiging ganito siya is itong row 4 is from the r minus 3r3. So, ibig sabihin row 4 is from the third. Bali, ang row 4 ang magiging ay ang may lalagay sa row 4 is yung from the r minus 3r3. So, 3r3 will be the third layer. Gaya ng solution kanina, ganon din ang lalabasin. It will be 0. Okay. So, that's it. So, ang last naman is yung pinaka-main is find the dimension and basis. So, ang basis and the dimension of that problem is so, ang dimension. Ilan nga ba ang dimension? So, itong final output natin na so, dito na column, na final column natin na nakuha is dito makukuha yung dimension. So, going back to the definition of dimension, there are 3. This one. So, 1, 2, 3. Tatlo yan. Okay? How about the basis mo? Buong ito. Like this. Since basis means it is the set of linearly independent vectors. So, ayan po yung set ng linearly independent vectors. Yan na po. Yan na po ang dimension and basis. Moving on to the theorems on basis. Assume that we let V be a vector space of finite dimension n. What are the theorems about it? First is that any n plus 1 or more vectors in V are linearly dependent. The second is any linearly independent set with n elements is a basis of V. And the third one is any spanning set of V with n elements is a basis of V. So this is the sample of spanning set of V. Like V is equal to the V sub 1, V sub 2 up to the V sub n. Okay? Suppose S spans a vector space V. Well then, any maximum number of linearly independent vector in S form a basis of V. So any maximum number, as long as it is a linearly independent vectors in S, then it will form a basis of V. Next is that suppose one delete from S every vector that is a linear combination of preceding vector in S. Then the remaining vectors from a basis of V form a basis of V. So kapag sa isang set ng vector of linear combination that precedes vector in S, then so S spans a vector space V. So the remaining vectors will still form a basis of V. Okay? That's all.
So now, we will define and magbibigay ako ng mga samples to find the rank of a matrix. So, the maximum number of linearly independent vectors in a matrix is equal to the number of non-zero on its row echelon matrix. So remember this non-zero on its row echelon matrix. For example, find the rank of the matrix using echelon form. So, let A is equals to 1, 2, 3, 2, 6, 10, 0, negative 3, negative 6, negative 1, negative 3, and negative 5. So, to solve this first and second row, I use these two formula. For the second row, I use this formula. Yan. And then, R sub 2 is minus 2 R sub 1. So, yung 2, tinimes ko sa lahat ng equivalent ng row 1. So, 2 times 1 is 2, and then 2 minus 2 is 0. So, yun, ginaya ko yung, kinopya ko lang yung first row, 1, 2, 0, and negative 1. And then, for the second row, ginamitan nga natin ng formula, so, na nag-came up ako sa ganyan, sagot. For the third row, I use this formula, R sub 3 minus R sub 1. 3 times for the, for first row, tinimes ko, and then minus ko sa row, R sub 3. And then, nag-came up ako sa gantong mga sagot. Next. For this one, I use this formula to reduce this row 3. So, ginamit ko dito yung row 2 din to reduce nga yung row 3. So, 2 times 2 is 4. So, 4 minus 4 is 0. And then, negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. Negative 6 minus negative 6 is 0. And then, yan. Puro 0 na lahat yung nasa third row. Ngayon, nakuha na natin yung dalawang non-zero rows, which is yung first row and the second row. And, ang non-zero row is also equivalent to the number of rank. So, ang rank natin is equals to 2. Ngayon, dumako naman tayo sa pinagkaiba ng row space algorithm and casting out algorithm using this given. Row space algorithm and casting out algorithm is a method to use for matrix. In casting out algorithm, it is also known as column space. For the first word of row and column, we will know na kung ano pinagkaiba. For the column, it is known as the vertical, and sa row naman, it is the horizontal. Using this given, I will use this for row space and casting out algorithm. So, using echelon form, I came up with this answer. Ginaya ko lang nasa taas, which is 1, negative 2, 5, 3, 0, 7, negative 9, 2, 0, 0, 0, 0. So, I use that result to row space and casting out algorithm. So, ginaya ko lang din siya. Kinopya ko yung answer sa row space. Ngayon, may result na tayo, and then by knowing the basis of row space, we will use non-zero rows so that we will know the basis of this algorithm. So, ito yung first row, and this is the second row, which is yan yung non-zero rows. Kaya ang basis natin ay A is equals to 1, negative 2, 5, 3. And 0, 7, negative 9, 2. So that is our basis, and dahil dalawa ang basis natin, it means we have 2 dimension. So for our casting out algorithm or the column space, kinopya ko lang ulit yung result ng nasa given natin, which is 1, 0, 0, negative 2, 7, 0, 5, negative 9, 0, 3, 2, 0. And to know the result or to know the basis of column space, we will use the pivot column, which is 1 and 7, which is in the first column and second column. Now, to know the basis of column space or casting out algorithm, babalik ulit tayo dun sa pinaka-given, which is saan tayo nag-came up sa gantong answers. So, our basis of casting out is 1, 2, 3, and negative 2, 3, 0. So that is our basis for casting out algorithm. And this is the difference of these two algorithms. So now, homogeneous systems of linear equations, it defines as a homogeneous system always has at least one solution, namely the zero vector, and there are two solutions of homogeneous system, which is trivial solution and non-trivial solution. And we will tackle that here. For the trivial solution, the system of equation in which the determinant matrix is not 0 but the solution are x is equals to y is equals to z is equals to 0. So, lahat ng to dapat is nag-equal to 0. So, let's try for this. Let's try this. For example, 8x plus 10y is equals to 0. 3x minus 5y is equals to 0. So, ito muna gamitin natin. Huwag muna tayo gumamit ng augmented dahil ang trivial solution is a solution that is obvious and easy to find. And, yan. We will use pa rin naman yung reducing. So, r sub 2 is 2r sub 2 plus r sub 1. So, ito times natin sa 2 ang r sub 2, which is tong row 2. 2 times 3 is 6, plus r sub 1 is 8. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 plus 8 is 14, which is 14x. And then, itong second part is 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. So, negative 5 plus 10 is 0. So, 14x is equals to 0. So, ang x natin ay 0 pa din once na times natin tong 14 to 0. So, for our y naman, ngayon nahanap na natin yung x. This one, 8x plus 10y is equals to 0. And then, isubstitute natin kung ano yung value ng x. 8 so 0 plus 10y is equals to 0. And then, 8 times 0 is 0. So, 10y equals to 0. So, automatic na ang y natin ay 0. So, this solution is a trivial solution. So, now for non-trivial solution, it is the system of equation in which the coefficient is 0. So, sa non-trivial, it is known as infinity or many yung solution niya. So, I'll give you an example. For augmented matrix, it will look like this. Tatanggalin lang natin yung mga variables. So, x sub 1 is visible as 1, 2, 5, 2, so 0, 2, 3, 6, 5, 2, 4, 9, 1, and 1, 2, 5, 2, 0, 0, 0. So, ayan, inilipat ko siya para mas malawak yung masusulatan. So, ito yung given na naisulat natin kanina. So, nag-come up na ako sa gantong echelon form dahil sa mga formula na ginamit ko dito. So, kung gusto nyo siyang mas i-explore, go. Kung paano ko siya ginawa, go lang. So, i-turn natin siya into homogeneous system na with the variable gamit netong nakuha nating sagot. So, 1 is x sub 1 plus 2x sub 2 plus 5x sub 3 plus 2x sub 4 is equals to 0. So, dahil 0 siya, x to. So, yun. Nag-start na sa x sub 2 which is 1. X sub 2 plus 4x sub 3 minus x sub 4 is equals to 0. And then, for x sub 3 plus 3x sub 4 is equals to 0. So, yung last row, ang tawag dyan is free variable. So, imagine na ito yung ating x sub 1, x sub 2, x sub 3, and x sub 4. So, yung x sub 4 natin is a free variable or called na non-pivot columns. And itong x sub 1, 2, and 3 is a pivot columns dahil meron siyang pivot. So, ito dahil wala siyang pivot, so non-pivot column siya. And mas kilala siya na free variables. So, yung x sub 4 natin is free variable. So, let x sub 4 is equals to t. So, dahil maraming x sub 4 dito, kailangan magkaroon ng value ni x sub 4. So, nilet natin siya into equals to t. Pwedeng iba. LS, ganyan. Pero, mas pinili ko yung t. Ngayon naman, unahin natin itong x sub 3. X sub 3 is 1. X sub 3 plus 3x sub 4 is equals to 0. X sub 3, since may value na yung x sub 4 natin, which is t, so 3, lagay natin din t, is equals to 0. So, x sub 3, ililipat natin itong part na to sa kabila. So, magiging negative 3t na siya. For x sub 2, saan natin lagay? Ito na lang. For x sub 2 plus 4x sub 3 minus x sub 4 is equals to 0. So, x sub 2 plus 4, which is yung x sub 3 natin ay negative 3t, minus x sub 4 natin is t, is equals to 0. So, x sub 2, 4 times negative 3 is negative 12, minus t is equals to 0. So, x sub 2, negative 12t, minus t is negative 13. So, x sub 2 is equals to, dahil negative 13 yung result nito, lilipat natin siya sa kabila. So, magpa-positive siya. X sub 2 is equals to 13t. And for the last variable, x sub 1 plus 2x sub 2 plus 5x sub 3 plus 2x sub 4 is equals to 0. So, x sub 1 plus 2x sub 2, meron na tayong x sub 2, 13t, plus 5, x sub 3 natin is negative 3t, plus 2, x sub 4 is t, is equals to 0. So, x sub 1 plus 2 times 13 is 26. 26t plus 5 times negative 13 is 15t plus 2t is equals to 0. So, x sub 1, 26t plus negative 15t is positive 11 plus 2t is equals to 13. So, positive 13t is equals to 0. So, our x sub 1 is equals to negative 13t. So, may value na tayo ng x sub 1, x sub 2, x sub 3, and x sub 4.